All right, guys. So we had our first Camille support a little bit ago in the LEC, and I actually wanted to take some time to kind of give an exploratory piece on the viability of this pick because I'm like the Camille support salesman. And although it's been nerfed a bit, I think it's really cool to see that teams are getting creative here, and specifically from DOS, who ended up being the one piloting it this game. So I wanted to just point out what the potential champion identity was for it and how it kind of impacts levels of pro play in different aspects. And I just think it's hella cool. So I wanted to start from draft because I think this is where you want to be very careful because actually Camille has a support champion has a pretty bad matchup spread because if you put her into the wrong matchup, she can either be absolutely disgusting or she could be absolutely unplayable. So that's why SK have opted to pick it 4 here. The alternative would be to quote unquote pick it first, really early, R1, R2 in this case, potentially, and then kind of let in this case Rogue kind of sit on it, think about, hey, it could be top flex or support flex. But I would kind of give it as a bit of a parallel to something like Lux support, where it's like you could flex it mid if you really wanted to, but it's not really something that's that viable, I would say. So that's something to keep in mind. That's why it's picked 4th here, and I think it's totally fine. Technically, rogues still get support counter pick, but they know that they generally need what they're looking for in terms of facilitation and like the potential combos with a champion like Smolder in this case. So there's not too many, and so most of the matchups you're willing to deal with. The only really bad ones it would be if like SK picked something that would absolutely stat check like Leona here, or if there was like Kalista Renata potentially, that would be really bad for Camille. So in this case, it's fine. Moving on into some of the gameplay. And to be frank, okay, we can start with level 1 because obviously levels 1 through 3, especially a champion like Camille, is actually going to be the strongest engaged champion, probably even surpassing something like Pyke, which has been pretty much the uncontested sort of stat check support champion, right? Up until that point. Even stronger than Nautilus, potentially. Even stronger than Leona level 1, right? A lot of these champs usually need level 2, at least, in order to be effective. Camille can do it at level 1, because she gets her engage and her trade ability in one ability, thanks to the hookshot. And to be honest, as this lane sort of like kind of plays itself out a bit, you kind of realize that at face value, the Camille didn't really do much, and understandably, this gives you the conclusion that Camille support's kind of useless. And after the nerfs and after there's a bit of a win rate fall in the last couple of patches since then. Yeah, it's definitely been weaker, but I think it's not about what DOS did. Let's frame it that way. It's about what DOS prevented from the side of Rogue. And I think this is very effective, right? Because you're aware that Camille has so much pressure and has what it can do. It effectively, just by DOS placing himself in certain parts of the map, it hedges against a lot of plays. This is an example here where just because DOS is here, and it basically prevents a mid dive, helps Niski stabilize in this lane against Karma. And well, you could argue you could do that with other champions. There's certain things that Camille brings to the table, especially at levels 1 through 3, and with the lack of resources and her ability to roam so well with hookshot. It's definitely a very entertaining option, right? It's very snowbally as well, and it just provides a level of kill threat that you don't really see many other champions provide. So for a very long time here, you'll see that DOS doesn't really do much at all, right? He's kind of just chilling, 0-0, right? Usually you actually want to get ahead on this pick, but that's clearly not happening. He actually dies here, and it's not very effective at all. But I think, again, it's like, it seems like he's useless, but he's providing a lot of pressure for his team. It sounds like I'm coping, but that is really what happens here. That gives the rest of the SK comp a lot of time to kind of stabilize. And as it progresses, it's usually an issue where if the Camille is not obscenely ahead, or in this case, just kind of equal with overall, it usually ends up not being well, because let's say in order to be even on Camille, you need to lead on Camille, and from a support perspective. And since that didn't really happen here, it's really on the rest of SK to really come ahead and garner their advantages, and that's basically the role of it here. So, what's the TLDR, right? Basically, we can treat the viability of Camille in the support role in pro play as something that definitely can be entertained, but would have to be really well understood by the team that's piloting it and played around. And in this case, I think it was done pretty well, because what it provides is an incredible amount of pressure and, basically leads where you can force leads in ways. It's like one of those champions like LeBlanc or Jace or like Renekton, where if you, it scales with the ability of the team to push advantages. And I think if we look at it from that lens, Camille can be something that can be extremely viable for a lot of teams.